What are the characteristics of God's teachers? The surface traits of God's teachers are not at all alike. They do not look alike to the body's eyes. They come from vastly different backgrounds. Their experiences of the world vary greatly, and their superficial personalities are quite distinct. Case in point, myself. Nor at the beginning stages of their functioning as teachers of God have they yet acquired the deeper characteristics that will establish them as what they are. God gives special gifts to his teachers because they have a special role in his plan for atonement. Similarities and likenesses, things that just grab us about each other, were just obviously not chance. Nothing happens in God's world by mistake, right? Or in the Holy Spirit's plan or Jesus' plan. Their specialness is, of course, only temporary, set in time as a means of leading out of time. These special gifts, born in the holy relationship toward which the teaching-learning situation is geared, become characteristic of all teachers of God who have advanced in their own learning. In this respect, they are all alike. All differences among the sons of God are temporary. Nevertheless, in time it can be said that the advanced teachers of God have the following characteristics. Start with trust. This is the foundation on which their ability to fulfill their function rests. Perception is the result of learning. In fact, perception is learning because cause and effect are never separate. The teachers of God have trust in the world because they have learned that it is not governed by the laws the world made up. It is governed by a power that is in them but not of them. I'm thinking in them, Holy Spirit, not of them, that's of God. It goes back to the creator-created relationship between us and God. It is this power that keeps all things safe, our invulnerability. It is through this power that the teachers of God look on a forgiven world, through the Holy Spirit. When this power has once been experienced, it is impossible to trust one's own petty strength again. Having seen or experienced a glimpse or a knowledge or a revelation, you can never go back. Who would attempt to fly with the tiny strength of a sparrow when the mighty wings of an eagle have been given him? And who would place his faith in the shabby offerings of the ego when the gifts of God are laid before him? What is it that induces them to make the shift? Clearly, that's what we want to know. First, they must go through what might be called a period of undoing. This need not be painful, but it usually is so experienced. Right? Definitely. Unfortunately. Apparently it doesn't have to be, but that's definitely my experience. A lot of things. Bankruptcy, divorce, businesses closing, relationships, everything. It's just like holding on. It brings me to that adage, it's not change that's difficult, it's resistance to change. Change is easy. Resistance to change, however. It seems as if things are being taken away, and it is rarely understood initially that their lack of value is merely being recognized. How can lack of value be perceived unless the perceiver is in a position where he must see things in a different light? And so in so doing and making ourselves available to God, the Holy Spirit, Jesus, whatever, it's the perceiver myself, I'm in a position where I must see things differently, and I usually refuse to see things differently unless I'm forced to do so, unless it's brought to my attention very implicitly. he is not yet at a point at which he can make the shift entirely internally. And so the plan will sometimes call for changes in what seem to be external circumstances. These changes are always helpful. When the teacher of God has learned that much, he goes on to the second stage. Next, the teacher of God must go through a period of sorting out. This is always somewhat difficult because, having learned that the changes in his life are always helpful, he now must divide all things on the basis of whether they increase the helpfulness or hamper it. And again, this is usually done in a process that's back to that how can lack of value be perceived unless the perceiver is in a position where he must see things differently. And things are then shown clearly, although often not pleasantly. He will find that many, if not most, of the things he valued before will merely hinder his ability to transfer what he has learned to new situations as they arise. Because he has valued what is really valueless, he will not recognize the lesson for fear of loss and sacrifice. Like cars, homes, money, relationships, jobs, positions, abilities, whatever the form they may take. They're all the same. So he will not, because he has valued what is really valueless, he will not generalize the lesson for fear of loss and sacrifice. It takes great learning to understand that all things, events, encounters, and circumstances are helpful. So trust is the key word here. It's the title to the section. This is where trust is built. Came to believe, second AA thing, second step. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. We are insane. I certainly am, although much less so. It is only to the extent to which they are helpful that any degree of reality should be accorded them in this world of illusion. Events, encounters, circumstances, etc. The word value can apply to nothing else. The third stage through which the teachers of God must go can be called a period of relinquishment. If this is interpreted as giving up the desirable, it will engender enormous conflict. I went through my own stage of that conflict, of being frustrated, of not knowing, and worked on trust. Few teachers of God escape this distress entirely. There is, however, no point in sorting out the valuable from the valueless unless the next obvious step is taken. The third step is rarely, if ever, begun until the second is complete. Therefore, the period of overlap is apt to be one in which the teacher of God feels called upon to sacrifice his own best interests on behalf of truth. So this ties back to the period of sorting out, not knowing what's what, seeing things come and go and change. It's resistance to change, and then this period of relinquishment, things that seemingly had value are then thus given up, and it's just frustrating. So the overlap is the teacher of God feels called upon to sacrifice his own best interests on behalf of truth. He has not realized as yet how wholly impossible such a demand would be. He can learn this only as he actually does give up the valueless. You have to go through it. Through this, he learns that where he anticipated grief, he finds a happy lightheartedness instead. Where he thought something was asked of him, he finds a gift bestowed on him. Often there's a lot of freedom involved in this towards the end of the process. That's the gift bestowed. Now comes a period of settling down. This is a quiet time in which the teacher of God rests a while in reasonable peace. Now he consolidates his learning. Now he begins to see the transfer value of what he has learned. Its potential is literally staggering. And the teacher of God is now at the point in his progress at which he can see in it his whole way out. Give up what you do not want and keep what you do. How simple is the obvious, and how easy to do. The change once it's seen and you start going through it, that's and it's easy. It's the resistance. It's the lack of trust. The teacher of God needs this period of respite. He has not yet come as far as he thinks. We think we're so far, and then we go, right, there's more. There's always more. Yet when he is ready to go on, he goes with mighty companions beside him. There's no capitalization, so it's not clear if that's the Holy Spirit, if that's Jesus, and that's definitely the case as well, but then there's friends along the way. Many of these can be found in Course in Miracles study groups and just people to rely on, co-sponsoring each other. Now he rests a while and gathers them before going on. He will not go on from here alone. The next stage is indeed a period of unsettling. Now must the teacher of God understand that he did not really know what was valuable and what was valueless. All that he really learned so far was that he did not want the valueless, that he did want the valuable. Yet his own sorting out was meaningless in teaching him the difference, relying on consulting the mind about the mind. That's one of our favorite lines. Consulting the mind about the mind about the mind, and on and on. The idea of sacrifice, so central to his own thought system, had made it impossible for him to judge. He thought he had learned willingness, but now he sees that he does not know what the willingness is for. And now he must attain a state, one of my favorite lines for the last decade, and now he must attain a state that may remain impossible for a long, long time, never to be understated. When Jesus says for a long, long time, he must learn to lay all judgment aside and ask only what he and ask only that he be taught what he really wants in every circumstance. Always just turning. Jesus says, "Ask me, ask me, ask me." Apparently he's never going to get tired of us asking. Like the the troublesome 3-year-old who's very curious, but always asking lots of questions incessantly, right? Apparently he has infinite patience. Were not each step in this direction so heavily reinforced, it would be hard indeed. The trust that we've experienced, and now we're coming through and we're seeing this, so that's so heavily reinforced, it would be difficult indeed. And finally, there's a period of achievement. It is here that learning is consolidated. Now what was seen as merely shadows before becomes solid gains to be counted on in all emergencies, as well as tranquil times. Indeed, the tranquility is their result. The outcome of honest learning, consistency of thought, and full transfer. This is the stage of real peace, for here is heaven's state fully reflected. From here, the way to heaven is open and easy. In fact, it is here. Who would go anywhere if peace of mind is already complete? And who would seek to change tranquility for something more desirable? What could be more desirable than this? To find your special function and to fulfill it is the ultimate goal, and where joy and peace are found, and tranquility and all that stuff. And it may be fleeting, it may be not, but as I do more and more, it becomes more of the period of achievement. What could be more desirable than that?